let's just be honest. Both sides used that 60-day period to rearm, refit, and prepare for the next phase. Both sides, I don't think either side actually expected the other to accept those things. I mean, the terms, I remember when they came out, the terms of the original 60-day deal, that I thought, I was shocked that President Trump actually signed those things, because, I mean, that it was basically a surrender document. Everything was in Iran's favor.
U.S. and Iran preparing for war. Demands on the table. Nothing to talk about. Exactly. The two sides are too different. Iran knows it's won the war, and its demands are in line with that. Trump refuses to acknowledge he's lost the war, and he demands complete Iranian surrender, and his demands are in La La Land. And when you have that scenario, no talks are possible. Like and subscribe.
And the most likely outcome is that President Trump never intended to, which is why, what was it? I think it was 5 days in. It wasn't even a full week that the paragraph, well, number one, paragraph 1, which was that Israel had to completely stop its war in Lebanon. That was like never going to happen. But then paragraph 5, of course, with the Strait of Hormuz, that said Iran and Oman would have administrative control for the 60 days without fees, etc. And then it was, I think, 5 days later that it was announced that the U.S. had set up a southern corridor with Oman, interestingly enough, in violation of that. And then we started sending ships through, and then, you know, what happened after that?
Here's the southern corridor, the reason the MOU broke down. Because Trump signs the MOU, basically an article of surrender to Iran, and then he tries to be cute and set up this Oman route for ships, and tries to get ships to go through there to undermine Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran attacks ships. Trump gets angry about Iran attacking ships because that was preventing the Oman route from being used. And so he bombs Iran, a 2-week bombing campaign of Iran. Then he ran out of weapons, and that's where we are today. Interestingly enough, Trump is still encouraging, the U.S. still encouraging ships to go through here, and there are ships being attacked daily. Like Iran just seized a UAE ship going through Oman. So he still refuses to acknowledge Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, and getting a lot of ships sunk or damaged or captured because of it.
The attacks came, our response, 13 more days of back and forth strikes until we finally said, well, all right, that's stupid, so let's don't do that. But now then, I think that, I mean, the 60 days is over. There's no talk, there's not even talks at all between the U.S. and Iran. So I think that both sides are just getting ready. Now, I actually spoke with the source in Tehran earlier today, and they said that their expectation is this is going to go back to war one way or the other, and so they're just mentally preparing for it. They're physically preparing for it, and I honestly don't see anything that's going to lead me to believe there is some kind of breakthrough that's going to prevent that. I fear we're going to go back to
the breakthrough that might prevent that is gasoline going up 50% more. Yeah. It's an already unpopular war with gasoline going up 50% more. The pressure to end it will be insane. And I don't think Trump will be able to resist it.
the war.
Do you think the US are definitely prepping for that and preparing to go back to it?
Well, there's no question about that. Yeah, they're 100% certain about that.
Trump said yesterday that we're not going to entertain going back to the MOU. So, yeah, are they waiting just for Iran to pack it in, or are they going to? Yeah, are they going all in again?
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's foolish enough to believe that these economic sanctions are going to cause Iran to just collapse when they didn't for the first 47 years, through 8 years of the Iran-Iraq war, et cetera, all those things. I don't think anybody is under the fantasy that that's going to happen.
Oh, you don't underestimate how deluded some people can make themselves, especially when their careers and their political future depends on it.
So you're either going to have to make some, you're going to have to concede, the U.S. is going to have to concede and go back to some kind of a deal that Iran would live with, and I can't imagine us doing that, because Ghalibaf this morning came out and I think presaged that this is going back to war by saying all of these terms have to be accomplished before we'll even entertain opening the Strait of Hormuz, which is the release of frozen funds, release of the sanctions, and that we are going to have control of the Strait of Hormuz. If you agree to all of those up front, and there were several others too, then we can start talking. And that's never going to happen. So then, therefore,
I disagree, Daniel Davis. It might happen if Trump gets desperate enough, if Americans get angry enough, it could happen. Right now, though, there's no chance of that happening. So until oil and gas and diesel start skyrocketing a lot higher than they currently are, yes, you are totally correct.
The only path left is a return to combat. There's no other path right now. And I think the Iranian side, I believe they're actually trying to provoke the U.S. to doing that so that they could be seen as having been defended. But I guarantee you, they're locked and loaded on missiles.
I think Iran is aiming to punish Trump in the midterms, and they're going to succeed. This is Iran succeeding. It's Iran driving gasoline to all new highs. Yeah, that's going to hurt Trump politically. They are accomplishing their goals.
And all kinds of other ordnance on targets all throughout. And if Trump makes good on his threat to hit energy infrastructure, oil infrastructure in Iran, I think that it's just they're going to set the Middle East on fire, and it's going to be catastrophic for the global economy. I think we're heading to depression type territory. I don't see how it could work.
Yeah, that's danger, especially with the talk of Trump thinking about using nukes. If he's thinking about using nukes, he's also thinking about hitting Iran's oil infrastructure, because that's on the same level as using nukes. And if he does that, the entire Middle East goes up in flames, and the global economy is effed.
Work out any other way.
God, perish the thought, but it's certainly something that we'll watch very closely here on the Trump Report and bring our audience daily updates. Let's move on to something slightly different and talk about the USS Abraham Lincoln. I'm just going to give a little bit of background on the story for anyone. I'm sure our audience are aware, but anyone who's not, because I sometimes extrapolate too much, me being from London and being in the UK, but doing a show about US politics. If this was a UK story, the Royal Navy, this would be front page news across all the newspapers and news bulletins. It's been at sea for almost 9 months, the aircraft carrier, about over 250 days without a single port call, which is a modern record. And this has obviously led to reports of food supply shortages, plumbing issues, and general living conditions on board. There's also concern for some of the mental health.
It's been so bad that they're sending veterinarians over to the USS Lincoln to write prescriptions, because the soldiers that boarded the USS Lincoln, deployments are normally 6 months or less. So they brought a 6-month supply of medication. After that, they run out, and they need a new prescription. And they need someone qualified to write the prescription. And since they're low on doctors in the Navy, they're sending veterinarians over there to write the prescriptions of the soldiers who need it. That's the state of the U.S. Navy.
For those on board, some family members of those have claimed that they have attempted to jump overboard. Daniel, it always kind of feels like a sum up of the entire war, that this aircraft carrier was brought to the region to help open the strait. Now this aircraft carrier is in itself disarray, all whilst yesterday only 6 ships sort of crossed through the strait.
Well, listen, this is a really troubling condition, because, and this is what I was arguing, as far back as December and January of last year, when it became evident that something was coming up and it looked like that there was some serious consideration for war. This was militarily unattainable. You were never going to just bomb your way. It was so painfully clear, and said, but yet Trump had this mentality of this massive armada he kept talking about with all these aircraft carriers and all these land-based.
Trump watches 3 hours of Fox News a day. And if you watch 3 hours of Fox News a day, you believe the U.S. military is undefeatable. So what's the issue of Trump attacking Iran? There's no way the United States could lose, right? Because the U.S. is undefeatable, according to Fox News. And so Trump has been having a very unhappy time because he lives in the la-la land of Fox News, yet he has to deal with the reality of ammunition shortages and the United States not being absolutely invincible. And it's also the reality that his presidency is functionally over because of his idiotic decision to bomb the supreme leader.
Aerial assets. So sea and naval and air power, trying to knock them out was just never going to work in a country that's as big as most of Western Europe, for God's sake, with all these mountain ranges, just all these missile cities underneath these granite mountains. It was never going to happen. And now then we're paying the price for that. He tried, it failed. And now then here's all our best aircraft carriers, our best mobile power, the symbol of American power, The symbol is now cracking and falling apart, and it failed to accomplish its objective. It doesn't matter. I think they've launched like 10,000 sorties off of that aircraft carrier. It's incredible up tempo. I can tell you I had 4 combat deployments spread throughout my Army career. I can tell you that is just being deployed is very taxing. But when it's nonstop, that kind of activity, it is very, very psychological.
You live in a sardine can out at sea for 9 months, never seeing land, surrounded by just metal all day and all night, because awful.
Logically draining. If you never have, even a day off, basically, and you can't get off the ship, of course. And now then, when you have, we're handling this terrible. When you have when the Secretary of War goes out, when you have the commander of Central Command, they go out there, and especially the CENTCOM commander, Admiral Cooper, goes in with a camera crew, and they have all these pictures of him shaking everybody's hands, and everybody's smiling, he's pinning medals on people, and then telling everybody everything's fine. Secretary Hegseth says, it's fake news, there's nothing going on here. Sure, it's a little tough. I mean, it's a combat situation, but these guys are great. The other guy says, they're resilient. Basically saying everything that you're hearing from the troops, from their families, is a bunch of crap. And they all know, everybody on that ship knows what that means. That means that we don't care about you. Shut up. Quit sending text messages to anybody, because we want to keep this quiet. Meanwhile, they have to keep living in this every day. They know that this one of the things that Admiral Cooper said yesterday, which I found especially aggravating, was he said the men, they know that how important their mission is and how much success they've had.
We saw the messages they're writing on the wings of planes. Like I'm so happy to fighting Netanyahu's war. I'll be a good goyim. That type of message on planes. Yeah. It's the morale is not high.
Saying it, dude, everybody on that ship knows that the mission is pointless. They know that their power, however great it may be, is nowhere close to being sufficient for the political objective that they've been given, and they know.
And they also know that this was a war of choice. That it wasn't Iran that attacked the United States. It was the United States that attacked Iran when they had a good nuclear deal on the table.
Oh, it's a failure. They know it's futile what they're doing, and so they just want to get out. But to be told that, no, we think it's really important, they know that they're being lied about. And so that just further diminishes trust and confidence in the leadership of the Navy and of the military leadership writ large. And I think that that's going to be something that's going to be a bigger problem even after they get back to port.
Well, yeah, I wanted to put this to you because I've seen some other analysis by military analysts on a whole host of sort of broadcasters around the world. I found it a little callous, to be honest. Some of it sort of said that, well, these concerns from the family, they're just really, really normal when you're away for 250 days. Of course, they're going to say this, but, the job kind of still needs to be done. What would you say to that?
I would tell you, I'm talking from direct personal experience here, especially on my final combat deployment in Afghanistan in 2010, 2011 during the Obama surge. I can tell you that the guys there were doing whatever their job was, and they were doing it to the best of their ability every day. In that case, they were saying, listen, we know that this mission is stupid. We know that whatever they're saying up at the head shed, they call it, is nonsense, because all we're doing is just doing tactical actions, and we know we're going to leave in whatever the period of time was, 12 months at that time, and then we're going to go home. Nothing will be any different. And of course, that's how it worked out. But they're doing their job here. This one is somewhat worse than that, because unlike the situation where I was in, I mean, there was no shortage of food. We had really actually great food that we.
Yeah, having good food makes everything better. Having bad food makes everything worse.
Were given that time, and you could rotate guys off. They could get some R&R. They could get relaxed. I remember I watched some of these guys. They were playing video games in their barracks. When they had their time off. You don't really have that opportunity here because you can't go anywhere, and you're in this tiny little confined space. And the food is terrible because the system wasn't designed for this, the naval system. It was designed to have a port call so often, but we can't do a port call because, according to Admiral Mullen yesterday, the former commander of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he said because all the bases have been rendered unsafe. So we can't go to them. The aircraft carrier can maneuver at sea, and it's hard to hit a moving target, even with Iran's technology. But if you go into
if an aircraft carrier docks at a port, it becomes stationary. Then it becomes an easy target.
a port, you're dead. If you port someplace, then you're a fixed target and you can be knocked out like everything else that we've been hitting. So we don't do that. So our very system won't survive it. Therefore, they can't get fresh food. They can't get fresh fruit. The meat is showing up rotten.
And the United States used to have 4 ships designed to resupply aircraft carriers at sea in situations exactly like this. And we got rid of 2 of them in the last 20 years. So now we only have 2, and making the situation worse.
Etc. Because it takes too long to get the stuff to go out there from other ports and trying to get things across, and transload from ship to ship. And so the system's not set up for that. So I think that people who minimize their complaints don't understand what these guys are going through. It's different than even what I went through.
And the fact, I think, remains that Donald Trump can call it fake news. I think he told the CNN reporter to be quiet on Monday when they were asking about it. But the fact remains that currently en route to replace it is the USS George Washington from Malaysia. So the Pentagon and the Department of War, they must be aware that there is an issue.
Oh, yeah. Oh, believe me, they're aware, of course.
They're aware of it because it's reaching the point where there's all types of leaks, damaging leaks for the administration. And so they want to put an end to that.
Behind the scenes, they just lie about it in public, which I get.
And fuck Trump for that. For he didn't used to lie straight up like that. He'd acknowledge the truth if it was unpleasant. But now, ever since the start of this war, he just lies about everything nonstop.
The mentality, the thought is that, hey, well, we can't admit there's a problem, so let's tell everybody, yeah, it's tough, but, these guys are resilient and all this kind of stuff because they just can't admit it. Otherwise, it would be like a, 5-alarm fire and it has to be put out and changes would have to be made. But they're doing their service members, the sailors, the Marines especially, they're doing them a disservice because they know. So they're eroding confidence and trust in the leadership, which has longer term implications than just this one deployment. But some of these guys, some of these leaders I'm talking about, some of these admirals, they need to go to the president of the United States and put their stars on the table if need be and say, this is an abuse of our people. It's not going to work. It's not going to succeed. It's never going to force open the strait, but it's going to continue to erode our combat power and our national security. So either you do the right thing and bring them home and end this, or you can have my stars. I'll be going out here as a civilian. Something like that would be a shock to the system. And instead, all they're doing is continue to be a mouthpiece for bad policy.
Well, like I said at the start of this section, I do believe this story was happening to British warships, or perhaps maybe this story was happening 10, 20 years ago. The alleged mistreatment of service members, that would be a national scandal. But I don't know. It's got some attention. It doesn't seem to have been blown up as big as you might think it would.
No. The media, it's not about protecting Trump. It's about protecting the image of the United States as a superpower militarily. So, of course, any story that suggests that the United States isn't a military superpower, like malnutrition on the USS Lincoln, terrible food on the USS Lincoln, spate of suicides on the USS Lincoln, that type of thing, yeah, it's not going to get any coverage, any real coverage in the mainstream media.
It hasn't, because it definitely has been in the news. It's been all over the news here, print and media.
Lightly peddling around the issue because it's gotten so bad a problem that they have to. But they'll memory hold it as soon as they can.
Mainstream media, everything. But the mainstream media is flooding the zone that everything's fine. Don't worry. We're taking care of it. And then, and they have these images of Admiral Cooper with the men themselves. Hegseth goes on the ship, all this to tell everybody, oh, fake news. And of course, a lot of the supporters of the president already believe that the news is fake from mainstream media, like that CNN reporter you talked about that got bashed, which is a routine occurrence anymore.
Yes. So they believe the media is fake, and yet they believe the exact same media that's giving them the fake news. Because if Trump's the one saying it, then it's not fake news anymore. No, the media lies. And if the media and Trump are on the same page, that means Trump is lying.
And so they're going to believe what he says over what these other reports are. And that's just an unfortunate feature of our current environment here in the United States.
It's not the only US ship to be in the news as well. It was revealed earlier this week that last month a destroyer, the USS Benfold, was in the South China Sea and was adrift for 4 days, left the crew without food, water, working toilets and aircon. I'm well aware, being from the UK, kind of the perceived weaknesses and struggles and challenges the Royal Navy is facing at the moment. We've talked about it a lot in this country. But I know that something you've mentioned in your channel. The US still has the largest military budget in the world. It's the biggest navy, the most air power. But is it
If you cut out all the waste from the U.S. military budget, I'm not sure you'd have the biggest military budget anymore. I'm talking about the part of U.S. military budget that goes for graft, kickbacks, that has nothing to do with the functioning of the U.S. military. Took all that out, you probably, I think more than half the budget would be gone. Maybe 3/4, 80%?
opinion completely geared up for the future of war?
No, it's not at all. We are the most expensive military in the world. We are not the most
Yes.
powerful military in the
Agreed.
world. I don't think anybody can rationally claim that both China and Russia are more powerful, all things combined, especially China in the technology, they're and naval power, they're definitely head and shoulders above where we are. Russia on the land is head and shoulders above where we are, both in size and experience in modern warfare. And the mentality is where we're falling the biggest behind. We are basically trying to make a military today that's World War II or Desert Storm or even Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, just better, just a little better. We don't want to change anything. We're still doing the same doctrine. We're still organized for combat the same way.
Yeah, we don't have any ways to deal with drones, either the long-range ones or the short-range ones.
And combat has radically changed in the air, at sea. I mean, the Ukrainians basically drove the entire Russian Black Sea Fleet out without even having a navy because of this new technology. And we haven't learned anything from that. We're still talking about now making a whole new series of battleships, which is anachronistic to say the least, because it's the surface level stuff is just no longer tenable when you get into a fight. It is only because of a choice, I think, that the Iranians have chosen that we haven't seen some of our ships get sunk already, because with an understanding of how air defense works on a naval.
I like tower defense games. I have played them. I usually play them like phone or iPad because they're great for when you have to waste some time. I've played them in other places. They're fun. And what was this? The Europeans were stunned and then firmly rejected Trump's offer to buy Greenland, a crucial point for future shipping routes. They argue that America's control of the world would ensure safety, but Europeans still didn't understand. Well, for one thing, I think buying Greenland, yes, it was about strategic control of the Arctic, but the United States is already losing that race. And I'm sure there was some graft on Trump's side. And why the fuck do you turn over a country just because someone wants you to? It's no. It's been a long time since a big country was bought and sold. A big territory was bought and sold. It's unthinkable nowadays. Anyway, please, balloons or similar. What was it? I could look it up later. It was like, I think Heroes. I'll look it up later. I can't think of the name right this second.
Ship with the Aegis and all these other kinds of things, you can saturate that system with enough missiles and drones that it just can't hit that many targets at one time, and it's finite. Once you fired off these interceptor missiles, and I think there's about 500 or so of various types in an aircraft carrier strike group, you're literally defenseless. Even a Garen drone could then just come and just pummel you, and there's almost nothing you could do. Once you can try and shoot it with some of the onboard guns as it gets closer, but some of these, with enough of them, you just run out of bullets. You just won't have enough. But they haven't tried that yet. They haven't saturated it. But our adversary, I promise you, China knows that. Russia knows that. Russia has seen it. And of course, with naval drones, with underwater drones, we're just not prepared for that. We're not prepared in the air, on the sea, or on the ground. And we haven't made any of the changes that are necessary if you want to be able to fight a peer competitor. Like, say, if an Article 5 article got triggered and NATO goes to war with Russia, which unfortunately is not as hypothetical as it used to be.
Russia just warned the UK to stop sending long-range drones to Ukraine, or else there'd be consequences. So, an attack on a NATO state is closer than ever.
we would not be, and this is writ large for NATO, not just the United States, we would not be prepared for a ground combat against the Russian side right now, who is definitely, and you're both offensive and defensive. They've done both for years. That's a big problem. That's the biggest problem for our going forward national security. Let's just.
Well, that was a great video. Like and subscribe and watch us kick our Twitch, and I'll see you next video. Bye.